It all started when this piece, it was a roughed out piece. I had this chunk kind of left over, and I just did these kind of coves and stuff on it and looked at it and said, well, that can't be another vase, because I don't do vases often. And so I just kind of threw it up on the shelf. And then I discovered it later, about the same time as when I discovered what I call bendy wood. It's just a wood that's easier to bend that they have. And so I got it down and started adding things to it. And I've done, these are, polymer and acrylics and modeling paste and stuff to build up items. And so I added flippers, I added feelers, I added teeth, and just all sorts of things to it. And that's when creatures became a thing. So, and one other thing, I'd also kind of developed this. It's a shellac on lacquer, re-lacquered technique that makes the colors kind of glow. And so, as you notice, a lot of the pieces have that kind of effect on the image, the sheens of the colors. So after this one, we went to Torpedo. That was over. Oh, and Aquafina. The names are what are just as much fun out of these things. And those are kind of the hardest things to come up with. Wood turners do a lot of hollow form kind of things. And it was, after I had turned this, I decided, well, I'll just cut a big hole in the side of it. And then, well, I need things coming out of it. And then, oh, maybe that's inside of a lot of them. And you just never know. So, and again, he had to be able to stand up. So I added flippers and stuff. And once again, that bendable wood, it's not really big. It just makes it, instead of taking hours to bend the wood, it takes minutes to do that. So, probably after that one, so they can't all be critters. You can only think of so many critters in a week or so, or two. And so some other things, like this piece, was just turned on multiple axes. So it just kind of defies, it's not a normal vessel, so. But, to begin with the wood turning, once you master your media, and, I can make pretty much anything I want out of that. And you can only make so many bowls. And so that's kind of why each time I kind of sit there and try to figure out, well, I'll stare at it for hours sometimes, wasting time, going, how can I make this different? This piece here, I had developed a technique to make spheres using a video camera and a monitor to see what you're doing. And instead of it taking, like a half hour to do a perfect sphere, it takes like 6 minutes to do it. And so I had a bunch of those around. And so as I was making these kind of things, I had some pieces, it had a hole in it. So I started stuffing things into the hole and figured out. And once again, here's this, this is that North Fork Island pine. I use a lot of that wood. I just ran into a bunch of it, and it's really nice. And with the help with a slug of steel down in the bottom of it, some of these things that look kind of off center, that helps hold them up. So again, I turned this on 2 different axes. I turned one axis from here so as not to tear up all these tiny little heads, and then moved it back over and turned this. And So I thought that was different enough. I could go ahead and do a vase. And so, and then this is kind of the same thing. This is more Norfolk Island pine. That's been, I textured the heck out of it. And I hadn't seen people leaving, these are the branches. That's what's really unique about it is you get these rings and they're bright red. And you can put them, if you can put it on the top, it makes streaks down it, but if it's in the middle, you can't, you know, so I tried to figure out something else to do with it. Over here is the two carnivorous titled Everything Eats, and so I had crawlers and I have these flutter bugs. And so first I did this one first, and I also made this other little crawly thing while I was in the process of this. And as you can see, he's kind of drooling. He really likes crawlers. And so, so I did this piece, and then I had the matching piece of this, and so I made this one with the spires, and I thought, well, it's got to eat something. So I started making these little tiny flutter bug to begin with. Okay, is this one better? Okay, so I, you know, made it. That's where the flutter bugs started out, and so. Since there were little flutter bugs, I figured there must be some parents for the flutter bugs, so that's why I made the flutter bug that's in that corner first, which I think is the prettiest one, actually. But as you can see, then there was more flutter bugs back there. And thanks to a laser cutter, I was able to do those. I can't spend too much time. People spend hours and hours, and I kind of, if I can't grind it and cut it out, and I use a number of grinders and carving equipment that speeds up things. So actually, this one was actually pretty early. When I say that one began the show, well, this was kind of the first piece I made using the bendable wood. And then, as you can see, more of the island pine. And so that's where I guess most of the techniques began. And then I'm trying to think, this was after COVID, but we got a piece in here that was right in the middle of COVID. And again, it's island pine. Not to scare people, I had to name it not COVID. You know, so you can get close to it. Yeah. So I used a technique to raise a texture on it. I think it's called yukibori. It's kind of a Asian technique that makes lumps pop back up out of the wood. And so I did that for this texture. And once again, it was still straight up and down to where it looked like a real simple minimalist thing. So I sliced the globe 3 times and then spun it around so I could make this angle come out of it. And once again, I had to load this with steel at the bottom to weight this thing down. And then, thanks to a clear acrylic, I've floated this one of these little globes that takes like 3 minutes to make, you know, because it's small. And this is just scrap leftovers of the bendable wood, you know, so, you know, just threw some of that on it. So, and went, oh, that's better, you know. So, one of my favorite pieces. It's not a varmint, but it is as the show says, rare specimens. And I'd never seen anything like it, so I was, okay, that'll work. You know, so, but once again, that's island pine, but it was, it couldn't really do the same thing again with it. So I made that totem-like emblem there, and then once again used the wood and stuff and made a couple of these rosette kind of things to hang it on. And I thought, well, yeah, I think that's good. And of course I added fiber to it. So I was, while working with Sarah on, you know, our collaboration, I did that to impress Sarah. I said, well, see all these, see this, I have string, and I did have all this string in my shop. I had not used it because I've wrapped handles and things out of the jute and things, and this black waxed thread is just a really neat fiber. So. But then I had to throw some copper in it because I do, you know, metalsmith. But I've skipped him. So Mighty Bitey, probably more time getting the teeth right because they looked too clean when I first got them in. I had to rough them up a little bit more, and I had to add color to them somewhat, you know, make them look almost as bad as my teeth, you know. So, and the drool and stuff, and then figured to make it look a little more, don't touch it, these little spires that come out, and these are just slivers of ebony, which would really stick you if you tried to, you know, like I said, it makes it, you realize he is dangerous, you know. But that was Mighty Bitey, and that seems to be a real favorite of a lot of folks and stuff. But after Mighty Bitey, we need to go this way. Well, I need to back up first, though. Not right after Mighty Bitey. After Torpedo, I forgot about this, was the Procreation. 2 more chunks of pine. And I thought about, you know, a way of connecting them together, you know. And so I made this railing with spines and different shape in the middle in those. And that's that same wood, and put flippers and made, you know, using plastics and acrylics to put all these textures in it. And it's the same thing to curve it around. You turn this piece first, and then you slice it all up at angles, and then glue it back together, and now you've got a curved tail or something. So, so this piece came about that way, and I made it to where you could unplug it because it was real unhandy to try to move the pair together. So that happened, and then there's the butterfly that I said was the first flutterbug one, and had to think of some name. I couldn't call it a butterfly. But after Mighty Bitey, I found I was at the dentist, and I said, do you happen to have any teeth around? And he, well, wait a minute, we do. And they went back and they had some displays, and he came out and gave me this bag of teeth. And they weren't real, you know, not pulled teeth. And so that's where it's nice to see a friendly face. I thought, again, I like names on them. So this is actually another example of that yukibori. It was why the bumps on the lips, you know, that's because, I mean, when you think about it, is somebody going to grind all the way around all those? No, you know, so look it up. It's a pretty neat trick, you know. But anyway, so I made this part of it, and once again, I had the hunk of the body, and I thought, well, that could be kind of like a sea creature or a giant oyster or something. I put the face down on top of it. So I just kept embellishing it with more, and used plastic and more bent wood. And the tongue. That's my tongue. I took a picture of myself. Oh, that's what a tongue looks like. Okay, so I got the tongue for it. I get tired of doing the same things, or, you know, what happened is I had this large piece of island pine, and I had just started hollowing it out and made this form, and I just kind of tapered it at both ends, and it hit me as that looks kind of like the shape of a cello, especially when I put a little curve in the middle. And so that's how this came about. And I thought, well, if it's round, I could probably make 3 cellos. And I didn't realize what 3 headstocks would take, but hooked together, there's more time in that than anything else. But I mean, it roughed out pretty quickly, and then it took probably 30 or 40 hours to get it finished and get it strung, and because you got these are, and I had to make tuners, and people, I tell them, so well, you can't play it because you'd have to have real tuners. And so, but they're a little tight, so they make a little bit of noise. So, and then once again, by using the shellac between layers of lacquer, I was able to get this sheen to where it actually looks kind of like a cello or a bass fiddle, that wood and that color. So, so that's how that came about. I made a rig to where I could make the 3 main discs there in the middle. We put these arcs cut in it, and we talked about wrapping cord and filling, that groove up. It never occurred to me that once I gave those to Sarah, she'd send me a picture back, and here's these 8-foot pieces that she'd wrapped and had loops and stuff, and I just called it up and went, wow, that is a lot better than just a little, surface decoration. So, but we never really saw it up on the wall till we came down here to install it. Because none of that was hooked together. We had just seen kind of just holding it or something laying on the floor. And so we came down, and I figured out a way to fasten that securely to it. And we put those 3 pieces up. And I had already made 2 other smaller pieces, thinking we'd probably would use those. And that really set it off. And we both, when we first got it up there, just to, not to our, surprise, we both stood back and went, well, cool. so look at that. So that piece was, by far really good. And so, but then we did something a little more mundane, so other than we lost the paper that had of how we had the strings lined out, I had cut all those little grooves, and we had to figure out a way to string it again and everything. So it took us a few hours to finally come up with something. And then I had to come up with something for the center, and that's a piece of copper that has been colored and with torch heat. And by doing different speeds or amount or quenching it in water, you get different colors on copper. So that was about the 5th, 6th iteration of a disc, and then finally he said, okay, that one works, I thought. So we did that. So this started out, was a little textured ball that I was playing with the quick spheres, that it's easy to make. And I put all this texture on it and this metal patina. It's kind of a stainless steel kind of thing. And we looked at it and thought, I just gave it to her and said, well, put some stuff in that. See, take it home and, see if you can think of something to do, because she thought that was neat and she was going to go try. And so, and she said she started making these loops, and rather than put an end to them, she decided to, connect them back together. But she didn't have the materials that I had available, and it was just brought it back, and it was just laying on the table. Just, well, I've got these things you can stick in there, but it's just there. And so I made this support for it out of bendable wood, and real thin little pieces of steel are underneath this base, so that stays up. But we got it together, and we thought, well, yeah, that looks okay too, you know. So, so that's my description of most of it. If you've got any questions, I hope, yeah. So, you know, she was a gallery shop artist, and she had pieces here, and I did too. And she kept, and we got to talking. We just ended up here together on First Friday a few times, and she goes, "Boy, I wish I could do that. That would turn." And I said, "Well, you can. We've got a number. There's a club in Tulsa, Northeast Oklahoma Wood Turners, and we've got a great clubhouse and classroom, and you can take classes, learn." She now has a big Powermatic lathe and sanders and a bunch of equipment that she doesn't have room for, but it's all in her garage. And so she did this little platter over here, and it convinced her that, yes, I guess I can do these things. And so and she was saying she's glad she got all of this work done, because she kind of misses being able to turn. And so anyway, she'll be back doing that kind of stuff. But that's how we got together and turned into a great friendship. And we had talked about collaborating before, but not until we had a real reason to do it. Which I forgot to thank 108 for doing all of this for us. I mean, this is quite a way to display our work, so we really appreciate it. But that also kind of got us to do it, and we're talking about doing more of them. Usually people say, "What happened to your brain?" Where did these things come from? And because I talk a little bit, everybody says, creativity, how they've got no creativity. How do you do that? And a lot of it, of course, I've been doing art. Well, in high school, I was doing steel sculpture, welding and stuff, and just forever. Like she said, that I've done sculpture and ceramics and jewelry. Like I said, I was a terrible painter. I didn't like doing it because I was afraid I was going to screw it up as soon as I'd paint something on it, so I didn't do good. But give me an airbrush, and it turned out I did a lot of good painting with it. But you just kind of look at things, and I just would spend, you know, like for this piece, I looked at, well, yeah, something's got to happen with this, you know, and come up with an idea. And or when you're not sleeping at night thinking about what you could do, you know, about it. But I was also going to suggest, if you're working, not to get too attached to the piece you're doing, because it becomes your friend, and you don't want to tell it the hard truth that it really kind of sucks, but I've got all this time in it, just move on and do another one, you know, or something like that. And you should be your own best critic, because like no one wants to tell you that, well, that kind of sucks, but they don't want to tell you that. And I've met like 2 or 3 people who would say that, you know. Or go to art school. They love to tell you how bad your stuff is, so it doesn't take long there. So, so that's about it. If nobody's got any other, yes?
I don't have a question, but I do want to say this is very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, well, and it was supposed to be fun, yeah, and so,
It is fun.
yeah, so, yeah. Did I do enough? Okay. Oh, good.